Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andre and I'm your bookworm, and today we are back to Lord of the Mysteries because we are reviewing special episode number 3. Now, I know, I've been teasing a lot about giving you the review of volume 6 of Lord of the Mysteries, but it is not yet ready. It's almost, and hopefully I'll be able to deliver it while I'm away, but keep in mind that it might not occur depending on how fast I can do this before I go on my holidays. But let's just get into what this episode is about. This video. Now, Lord of the Mysteries is a web novel written by Qian, Shui, the Wuzei, or Cuttlefish That Loves Diving. This is a Chinese web novel, epic fantasy, urban fantasy, steampunk, Victorian fantasy. You can mix all of these together to create this web novel that has just blown my mind as I've read it. I've read 6 volumes, like I said. The reviews for volumes 1 to 5 are here on the channel. You can check them out through the thumbnails or the cards up above. But the thing today is the anime. This web novel has been adapted to an anime. The first season came out earlier this year or last year, and I watched every single episode. I reviewed it here on the channel as well. You can check out the reviews for them. And I thought it was a brilliant adaptation in terms of what it encompassed in comparison to the web novel. However, recently I discovered that they had released 3 special episodes. Now, these special episodes are of arcs that should have happened within the first season, but we didn't get to see them. Now, with these special episodes, we get to see them very well, and I really enjoy them, but let's focus on it. So the first special episode, I reviewed it already. It's quite separate. It's its own mini arc. Now, special episode number 2 and 3 are one arc, and that is the Qilangos arc for the ones that have read the web novel. The second special episode is a lot of setup done. It introduces some cool characters, but there's not much action. This third one though, we're gonna get to it and we're gonna just dive into the sequence of events that happen. So let's go for it. Alright, so we start this episode with already a tense scene because we see a noble kind of being chased down and something bad happens to them. Of course, for the ones that have read the web novel, we know perfectly well what this is. This is Qilangos just choosing a noble to impersonate, and so he needs to basically get rid of that noble so he can impersonate them. But right after this, we jump into this ballroom that is happening with all the noble people of Backland, and we see Audrey in a garden kind of reading this message of events that happened in the previous episode with Force and Zio barely escaping Qilangos, and so Audrey knows that he is around, he might be coming soon, show up soon, and as she is thinking all of this with Susie, her dog, the noble shows up and she immediately senses that something is off. Of course, this sense is because of her spectator pathway. She can detect these subtle differences and immediately she understands that that person is Qilangos. Now, this of course raises the tension even more because for the ones that don't know what's going to happen, they know that now Audrey is in danger and a lot of the nobles there. So Audrey goes and does 2 things. First of them is to alert her father, which will alert the nobleman that is being targeted. And second is to tell the fool about the information that she has about Qilangos. And of course, the fool is Klein, and Klein is observing all of this. He gives the information to Alger, who is the first person who requested for Qilangos to be found. And so Alger alerts the Church of Storms, who try and gather people to immediately go to that ballroom. At the same time, Klein, who is observing all this, he's kind of like, okay, I might need to do some preparations for the events to come. What follows after this is basically the realization of all the tension that had been built up, because we see Qilangos try and go for the kill to a certain noble, and what follows is a sequence of actions that is really fast. There's a lot of things happening one after the other, so many different powers, because we're introduced to a bunch of different people, all of them from different sequences, and they all exhibit their powers, which is really, really cool. And I thought that whole sequence of action was epic. It looked really good. The animation with the action, I think, is always on spot. Even in the first season, every time there was action and the powers were revealed, I really liked to see that. So this scene, I loved it. I think it was really good. And we end that scene with Qilangos failing to kill the person, and so he decides to back off and try it another time. Of course, the nobles and the Church of Storms that just arrives when Qilango leaves, it will not just sit still and do nothing. They try and pursue Qilangos. Qilangos goes into this forest with a lake, and at some point the Archbishop or whatever Cardinal of the Church of Storms stops Alger and everyone else from the pursuit because he senses someone powerful is nearby. And as we see this, we go back to where Kilangos is, and suddenly he's being attacked by skeletons that look very creepy. And as this occurs and Kilangos tries to defend himself, we see that the person that is controlling these skeletons and trying to attack Kilangos is Mr. Azik, a character that had shown up in the first season, was quite important. He had his arc in the first season, and we see him back here in almost full power doing really crazy things. And after we see this revelation of Mr. Azik, we jump into Alger, looking into the lake, seeing Kilangos, and then Kilangos kind of just melts into his skeleton, kind of. So showing that he is dead, however, also showing that the artifact that he had, the Creeping Hunger glove, also disappeared. Now, he is a bit flabbergasted with this, and he realizes that the fool must be much more powerful than he thought, because he had someone at the level of an angel to help him. So we see this juxtaposition of Audrey, who has always been devoted to the Fool and has always revered him a bit, saying praise the Fool, and Alger, who is the other side, who was a bit doubtful about the Fool, suddenly be afraid, have this devotion based on fear of the Fool. And so you see both of them praising the Fool, which is, I think, a really cool scene to show how devotion can be raised by different emotions. So that was done well. And what follows is just a few sequences of us understanding the repercussions of it, of, for example, the church is realizing that there is a secret organization that killed Kilangos, but they don't know anything about it. And we also see Klein in a more relaxed setting with his siblings, realizing that Kilangos had a £30,000 reward and he just missed that money. So that part was cool, and it's also good to understand that these events all happened before the end of season 1, because at the end of season 1, Klein is no longer with his siblings, whereas in this last scene of special episode 3, he is still with his siblings. He's having breakfast in the house that they all shared. And that is pretty much the episode. The episode was shorter than usual, but I also think the episode did what it had to do. It showed the right moments, and I think it showed them really well. The battle, especially between the different Beyonders and Kilangos, was really cool. We got to see a lot of different powers, but at the same time we got to see the different powers that Kilangos had, because he had his own powers from his sequence, but he also had a lot of different powers from his Creeping Hunger artifact, and those will be quite important later on in the next season when Klein gets a hold of that Creeping Hunger and we see each of those different powers in action, or how he takes them back, or all of that. I don't want to spoil too much. What matters is the action, the animation was really well done, and I think all of these special episodes were also really well done because they all did a slightly different thing. With the first one, we got introduced to the Forsaken Land of Gods, which will be super important. Also introduced to Derek, who will be a really important character later on. Second episode, we see a lot of setup, but we got introduced to very important characters as well, and we got a better sense of Backland, which will be quite important in the next season. And finally, with the third episode, of course, we see this power that Mr. Azik has, how Klein can basically put all of these pieces together with different people and have the different people from the Tarot Club interacting even without knowing much, and to basically achieve goals that not many other organizations would be able to. So I think it was really good, each episode. I wish there were more, because I kind of want to see a lot of these small arcs that exist in the web novel transposed into the anime format and just be able to enjoy it like that, because I think overall, both first season and special episodes, the translation between web novel to anime has been really good, and I really commend it. But kind of know what you think. Do you agree with me? Which one of the special episodes did you like the most? I think for me, I really like the vibe of the first one, but I really like the powers shown in this one. So there's a bit of a balance, but I want to know what you think. So comment down below and let me know. And if you're new, don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and you shall be seeing me on Thursdays and Sundays, except if I'm on holidays, which hopefully will be just a short time without videos. But otherwise, I'll see you soon.